Welcome back, everyone, to One Year Whiskey presents the story behind the bottle. Today, on our Elijah Craig series, we're stepping out of the bourbon lane and into the rye lane with the Elijah Craig Straight Rye. Same great name, completely different grain, and one of the most approachable ryes on the market today. Let's get into it. Here's something most bourbon drinkers don't know. Rye whiskey actually predates bourbon and corn whiskey in America. Before Kentucky bourbon became the dominant American whiskey style, Maryland and Pennsylvania rye were what the country was drinking. Rye grain was abundant in the mid-Atlantic colonies, and the style traveled west with settlers, and for a long time it was the American whiskey. But bourbon eventually took over, driven by Kentucky's abundant corn crops and its limestone-filtered water and the charred oak aging innovation that Elijah Craig himself helped pioneer. Rye fell out of fashion for most of the 20th century, but in recent decades it's come roaring back, and distilleries that built their reputations on bourbon have been stepping into the category with serious intent. Heaven Hill launched the Elijah Craig Straight Rye in 2020, a deliberate statement that the Craig quality standard wasn't limited to bourbon. What makes this rye particularly interesting is its mash bill philosophy. At 51% rye, it technically qualifies as a straight rye, but its high corn mash is doing some significant work, softening and sweetening the profile in a way that makes this much more accessible than a traditional high rye expression. Using bourbon verbiage, we would call this a high corn rye whiskey. It's built as a bridge between the bourbon world and the rye world, and it's a very effective one. So what exactly is the mash bill? 51% rye, 35% corn, 14% malted barley, bottled at 94 proof, and sells for around $65. And at that price, the competition opens up. Michter's, Old Forester, Pikesville, they're all in the conversation. Where Elijah Craig has a leg here is approachability. If rye has ever seemed too harsh or too grain forward, this should be on your to-try list to adapt your palate to rye. Alright, Elijah Craig goes rye. Let's pour. On the nose, I get a very forward burnt chocolate note, brown sugar, and a hint of smoke or burnt wood. It's a more savory, complex nose than the bourbon, and it's distinctly rye without being aggressive. The color is a medium amber, slightly lighter than the bourbon expressions, clean and bright. In the first sip, the corn earns its keep immediately. Rye spice is present, but calmed way down. The corn sweetness pushes honey and oak forward and keeps the rye from taking over. This drink's closer to a bourbon rye hybrid than a full throttle rye, and at 94 proof, it goes down pretty smooth. The finish is nice and easy, spice fades cleanly, corn sweetness lingers, and closes without drama. A very drinkable, very accessible rye finish. I enjoy a good rye, so I expect a little more spice and complexity from ryes, but I understand what Elijah Craig is doing with this straight rye. A bourbon distillery making a rye whiskey that bourbon drinkers can love, and a great starting point for anyone exploring the category. Are you a rye convert yet, or still holding out? Drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like and follow One Year Whiskey for more history behind the bottle, because here, the pour tells the story.